Good evening. I would like to call the East Lyme Board of Finance regular meeting to order. Today's Wednesday, April 13th at 7 o'clock, and we'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Rise.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda is delegations. This is the opportunity for any member of the public who would like to speak to an item on tonight's agenda has an opportunity to do so. Do I have any? Please feel free to come to the podium and please state your name and address for the record.
I forget.
I'll remind you.
Thanks, Peter. I'm Mike Schultz, Lovers Lane, East Lyme. Thank you, folks, for your diligent service that you're giving us all. It's uncompensated. I know it takes a lot of time, a lot of hours and preparation from you guys. And this is the most difficult time, but we do appreciate it. I'm hoping this evening I don't want to be insulting to anyone, so I just have some things I need to mention and nothing personal intended. As eloquently stated at last year's Board of Finance budget deliberations by the Board of Finance, it's not the job of the Board of Finance to determine where dollars are spent, but rather can the town afford the expenditures. That was brought forth by our last year's Board of Finance. While I do feel that the 4.59% increase by the Board of Ed and 5.06 by the town, if my numbers are correct, is excessive, very excessive, given the cost of living conditions we're all facing today. It's going to be tough. The requests, however, were developed by professionals, elected officials, and town management. And sharpening the pencil, as you folks are doing, can't hurt. But something, in my mind, has to be done to reduce the 97% of fixed expenses at the high school, in the high school system, which is, one of the things that I look at as that always has been a problem. Three-year contracts. They make these promises going on 3 years. You have no idea what the budget's going to run in those periods of times, like especially now. And still, we're getting very high wage increases from many. Compensations, at this point, I don't think, they never show full compensations to people anymore. And I know, because I read the contracts, and I got copies of the contracts, that they're as high as $20,000 this year. Compensation. That's a lot of bucks. Now, additionally, I feel that full exposure of the expenses, disclosure, I should say, of the expenses would also be beneficial, such as the actual per pupil costs, which is not, in fact, $19,761 as portrayed in the handout from the Board of Ed. Because there are certain things that they don't have to consider. That's probably a state number. But it doesn't take into account state contributions, doesn't take into account transportation. So it's actually close to about $25,000 per student when you start adding those things in and divide it by the number of pupils, which is in the chart. So we need to take some action in that regards eventually. And the fact that compensation increases as high as $6,000 exist should also be reevaluated. The taxpayers and employees should also be made aware of their health insurance premiums, the premium cost, which I don't think is really publicized. It's the same for the Board of Ed and for the town employees, who also contribute a percentage to that, from 12% to 20.5%. But the total premium for a family plan is almost $31,000. Take that times the number of employees. We're talking some very, very large numbers. So with that, again, I thank you for your service and your time. Sharpen your pencils, and let's get it done with. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Next, approval of minutes. So we have the regular meeting on March 9th in your packet, along with the special meetings from March 15th, 21st, and 28th. Does anyone have any comments or corrections? Yeah.
Denise, I do on the March 15th meeting, on the second page, Mr. Steele asked if the STAR contract would be hands-on as well as visionary. That should read the IT director rather than the STAR contract.
Okay. And you're right, I should have asked for a motion to approve the minutes, and then, if you want to make that motion.
I move to approve the minutes of the East Lyme Board of Finance regular meeting of March 9th, 2022.
So any, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I have,
Yep.
under new business, or Kevin, Mr. Series explained the public safety building should be moved into by, I believe it's April 1st, 2021, not August 1st, or April 1st, 2022.
I get what you want, you might have a big window there, so.
Unless you get a time machine.
Yeah.
And then there's two references where my name is spelled Mayfield. If you could, under section paragraph 8 and under adjournment, it just has an X, not a Y. Other than that, I'm fine.
Okay. So we're taking these one at a time. Does anyone have any other corrections to the minutes of March 9th? No? All those in favor of accepting the minutes, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? No. Motion carries 600. Now the ones for March 15th. Do I have a motion to approve the March 15th minutes?
Make a motion to approve the Board of Finance special meeting minutes, budget reviews for Tuesday, March 15th, 2022.
Do I have a second? Second. Any discussion or corrections?
After the correction that I did out of term.
Yes. So you've got that right, Sandy? Okay, all those in favor of accepting those minutes with the correction as noted, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? No. Motion carries 600. Now on to the special meeting of March 21st. Do I have a motion to?
Keep on going. Move to approve the East Lyme Board of Finance special meeting minutes of Monday, March 21st, 2022.
Second.
Second.
And any discussion, corrections, comments? Nope, seeing none. All those in favor?
Yeah, just
Oh, sorry.
The
Okay.
salary increase, it was 2.5. I'm just trying to, we were going to double check that. Just for the teachers and paraprofessionals, just want to make sure that number was accurate. 2.5% increase for
For the 3-year contract.
teachers and paraprofessionals.
Paras, the paras and teachers, what the rates, paras were 2.5, it was right around, it varied over, it was over 3, each year is not the same.
Yeah, the first year, yeah.
You want to give us a minute, Peter, just so we give you the
Yeah, just-
exact numbers, it's at around 2.5.
And just so you know, the way the minutes read, it said Mr. Baumann reported that they successfully negotiated 2 new 3-year contracts with a negotiated 2.5% salary increases for the teachers and paraprofessionals.
Yes,
So that's how it
average.
reads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll give you a minute.
So it's about, it's a little over two, a
Little
little
over
over
2.5.
2.5%, because the first year is higher, and then, because we eliminated some steps, and then the other 2 years are lower. The average over 3 years is about 2.57, 2.58%.
So should we amend these to say with the negotiated averaging between 2.5, averaging approximately 2.57? Is that the number?
Again, I would, the average is 2.5.
Yeah, well, not to, are you asking, so the minute, that's what Eric said at the minute?
Right.
So that you can't
Yeah.
really, I'm not the town clerk, but I don't think you can change the
Exactly.
minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think when 2.5 versus 2.57,
That's what
I
he
mean,
said,
it's
and
not a
that's what we
huge
keep.
Right.
difference. I don't know that you
Yeah.
can amend the
Okay.
minutes to, because that's what he
Right.
said.
Yeah.
So we can keep
Yeah, it's noted.
so noted, but
So noted, yeah. Just want to,
okay.
it's an important number.
Yes. So do we have all those in favor of accepting the minutes?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All those in, so the motion carries 600. And now on to March 28th, special meeting.
Make a motion to accept the East Lyme Board of Finance special meeting minutes of Monday, March 28th, 2022.
I'll
Second. Any discussion, corrections? No? If not, all those in favor of accepting the minutes of March 28th, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any nays? Any abstentions? That motion carries 600. Okay, on to reports. Mr. Sherry.
I almost forgot this was a regular meeting, which I had to do this tonight, too, so it's been sort of, I'll keep it brief because it could be a long meeting, and I know we got a lot of business to attend to. First of all, Mike Schultz has been a voice that he's brought forth for several years now. And the thing is, Mike points out concerns he has, but he's always very cordial, and as he's extremely respectful in dealing with it. So I always, and Mike knows that I've always appreciated and welcomed his input and his suggestions, so forth. So I just hope he continues. So thank you, Mike. As you saw, there's an article in the paper. We had some thefts out of the Public Works building. A couple of those items taken are desperately needed at this time of year by Parks and Rec, so we're going to have to look at quickly replacing them. We're working out that so it won't have any adverse impact on this year's current budget or anything like that. So we think we'll be able to deal with that, and the police obviously have an active investigation on that. Our tax sale is next week, a week from tomorrow, the 21st. So far, we've realized a little over $700,000 from that, and if everything came through, it would be about $1 million more coming in, but I don't really think that'll happen, but we will probably get a significant a bit of money from that next week. So, so that's very nice, because this is all unanticipated. This was not figured in any calculation for this year's budget revenue. Other thing, too, is I do get it. I just found this out today, so you're the first ones I'm getting to share it with, that it looks like Starlight and the mobile station somewhere around late June, early July, it will be the teardown time. Which summer, I think Board of Ed would probably agree that's probably the best time, because I'm sure even with it being off the road, there'll probably be a lot of disruptions on the road. So let's hope that does not be a problem. The last thing, and I've mentioned this, I mentioned at our Board of Select meeting, the police building, because of the facade, the cinder block facade that's on that, has a tendency to leak. This is a documented thing going back to the 80s. Bill Scheer, because we had some water coming into the building back last year. Bill did not think it was from the roof or from water coming in from outside or under the ground, so he did some research and found out that these types of buildings do get a little moisture inside of them. If the rain comes driving in at the right angle, that's more of a porous surface. So he did a report to me, but here again, he said, I'm not an expert. We need to find an expert. This was never pointed out during any inspection or when the architect reviewed the building after it was selected by the Vision Committee to do a thorough inspection of the building at that point. And again, we won't belabor the fact that no formal inspection was done initially. I've said many times that should have been done. The thing is, it needs to be done. There are resources to cover this, but we want to hire a architect to come in and give us an analysis. We want an expert. Bill said, I'm not an expert. So we want somebody who can come in, tell us what the problem is, and how definitely to fix it. So next week I'll be asking the Board of Selectmen to presenting some, we went out to an RFP to 3 different architectural firms. We got 2 back, so we'll be bringing that to the Board of Selectmen next week to see if they'll approve that. And it will have to come back to you because it will be over the threat. That's over $10,000, so it'll have to come back. We do have resources for that. But here again, it's only happened once since the roof has been done when we had that driving sideways rain one night. It needs to be fixed. And Rich, I talked to you about this last night, the gift that keeps on giving. It does need to be addressed. And once it's sealed, it's not a forever. It's about every 8 years, but that Bill Scheer will be talking about that to the Board of Selectmen next week and as we move forward. So I'll keep you advised. So that's it. Rich.
Yes, since you mentioned that the architect for the project had reviewed the building, are they under any liability for what's going on with this leakage?
I don't know. That's obviously something we'll pursue. Well, check it out anyway.
Okay, because they also gave
Or
us,
it is being investigated.
yeah,
But
because they also gave us bad information about the roof itself and its
It-
potential lifetime.
okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Siri? No? Thank you. Next, Anna Johnson, Director of Finance.
Good evening. Your reports were included in your packages. Does anyone have any questions on them?
I know we've all been looking at these numbers a lot the last couple of days, so I don't know whether you have any additional questions on my end. Anyone? We have our updated revenue, updated unassigned fund balance. Very happy to see that we continue to approach that 15%. I know that over the years, that's been something the town's been working to achieve, that being the number that our rating agencies look for us to have on hand.
So, with the estimated unassigned fund balance, what we had received previously had the recommended balance at $11,699,217, and with what we just received tonight, it's $12,201,713.
Right. The reason for that difference is I didn't change the formula in the cell. So if we were to, and so when I noticed that, that's why I did the amended for you.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Anyone else have any questions for Anna? Nope. Yep, like I said, we've all been just looking at these numbers for weeks, so I feel like there's not a lot of additional questions. So, on to new business. This is the continuation of our 2022-2023 budget deliberations. First, I just want to clean up a remaining item on the town budget. On Monday night, we went through and made a number of reductions, including a police officer, not the whole, half a police, half a firefighter. And while we had the salary numbers, we needed to figure out the other dollar amounts associated with pension, healthcare, FICA, and all of that. So Anna has provided us with those numbers. That's $25,408 in addition to the salary. So I would like to make a motion that we amend the budget for 2022-2023 to reflect the reduction of $25,408 to coincide and reflect the savings associated with elimination of those half positions. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion, questions?
So then that would be just a little bit over 200,000 reduction, including the FICA, et cetera, changes.
Right, so we've got the 179,712, and then in addition, the 25,408.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor of approving that further reduction to the town budget? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Motion carries 6-0-0. So, I'd also like to thank the chiefs for being understanding, hopefully, about those reductions that we took. I appreciate their working with us.
They'd rather not, but they understood that, that this is extremely a difficult year, so, and it does address their needs just a little bit later, so
Yeah.
they're appreciative that they are being considered at all, so.
Thank you. So Monday night we concluded the town deliberations, and I think we did make significant headway with the Board of Ed deliberations. We had a very healthy discussion too on the value of 1 mill and what people's hopes were in regard to the new mill rate. But I think we all understand there's still a number of moving parts that will all affect where we end up finally. But given that, I just want to emphasize that tonight's discussion to finish out the Board of Ed deliberations is not about the potential use of the fund balance. It should not be a factor in determining what increase is appropriate in the Board of Ed or town budgets from last year to this year. That's, I mean, I think it was a good discussion, but I don't think we want to get down into the weeds of what a potential mill rate might be with all of those moving parts still. So where we stand right now.
Can I just take one moment,
Sure.
just for full disclosure, I have to bring this up. It's been brought up before, just that my wife is an employee of the East Lyme Public Schools, but she is not an administrator, and she's, I have no control over any of the line items or what happens there. So it was disclosed during the election, and just want to bring it up so if anybody has an issue with it, they can. Thank you.
Thank you. So, the cuts made to the town budget night totaled the $179,712 plus the $25,408 that we just approved. So this has brought the total town to an increase of 2.99%, and now we're going to move on to the 4.95% increase in the Board of Ed budget. Once we conclude the deliberation of the Board of Ed budget, the next step will be a public hearing on the budget, which is scheduled for April 25th. So per our charter, any person qualified to vote at the annual town meeting shall have an opportunity to be heard. So we welcome any residents who would like to come and speak. If we end up with lots of people, obviously we may have to put a limit on how many minutes they could speak, but we can decide that if and when that occurs. So Monday night we took a poll as to what people thought was an appropriate amount to reduce the Board of Ed's requested increase. I think we had a high of 853,000 cut, another 830,000, another 750,000 proposal, and then a low of 500,000. At that point, Peter hadn't clarified what his amount was yet, and I had basically provided an example of what a 200,000 cut to the town and a 500,000 cut to the board would do to the overall increase in the combined budgets. So I guess before we get started, Jeff had indicated that they could probably afford a certain amount of decrease. I don't know whether you, over the last day and a half, whatever, had a chance to think about it more, and if you had anything you wanted to add at this point.
Nothing really new, but we have been sharpening our pencils and trying to work up to or closer to that 500,000 mark. But I think, as I stated the other night, Monday night, going beyond that, we don't see that being a possibility, and there would be some pretty significant cuts, staffing. We'd be looking at sports, etc. So, but we were able to sharpen our pencil for sure over the last couple hours today, and yesterday some too. So it's about where we're at.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you. So I think at this point we can open it up to discussion, see whether anyone's had any further thoughts over the last day and a half here. Maybe take another poll as to what they think would be the appropriate number, and then see if we can get to a consensus. You look like you're ready to speak down there. So.
Yeah, I can. I was looking at numbers again and trying to get some parity between the cuts that the town realized and the cuts that we could suggest for the schools to realize. And I've come down from the higher figure that I had the other night. And I think I agree with you, Denise, to get parity between the town and the schools. I think 500,000 is about where I'd like to arrive at.
Okay. Maybe we can go up the line, Peter?
Yeah, I came in at around the 500 with the parity thing in mind as well, and I think it's a difficult number to come to. It didn't come easy. So that's That would be my goal.
And I may switch over here. I know, Lauren, you were at 500 the other night. Any further thoughts?
I think I'm firmly at 5. I don't know that I feel comfortable going much above that.
Okay. And
I tried to go through the numbers as best I could and took a look at the presentations and listened to the other night, trying to come down from the 750 that I was looking at before. My concern is that I know this is a hard year, but I know next year is going to be even harder. I don't think any of us know what next year is going to bring, just based on the current inflationary times. So I was willing to split the difference and go down to 625.
John?
Could you repeat that?
625.
Sorry.
So that was going to just based on the inflation I'm worried about next year. The lowest I would want to go down to was 625.
What's that number?
625,000.
Okay, thank you.
I looked at the numbers again, and I'm not going to rehash what I said Monday, but I'm concerned too about next year and the year after, because at that time the ARP and ESSA funds is going to start to run out, and the salaries involved in those two funds. What's going to happen to the staff at that time? Are they going to be released? Are they going to be absorbed into the budget, the regular budget? And if that's true, if they go into the regular budget, then we're going to be looking at another high increase in the school budget next year and the year after. The other thing too, I mentioned about, I surveyed the other towns, and I know, as was mentioned by one of the board members, that there's a lot of, and some of the people on the Board of Ed, that all the different districts are different. They have different requirements. They get different funding. If one or two of those fell into the 2 or 3 percentage increase, I could see maybe it's not a good comparison against the 4.59 for the East Lyme border school system. But because there were 6 that fell in that 2 to 3% range, I think it's more possible that there's a good comparison there between that range and the 4.59. I think East Lyme District should have been lower. I think the 4.59 is excessive. It's just my personal opinion. That being said, I came down to, and I more or less in the same range as Paul, down to 625,000. So that's where I stand right now.
Okay, so, and just to level set, a reduction of 500,000 would be an increase to their budget of 3.64. A reduction of 600,000 would be an increase of 3.45. One of the things, if I had to put myself into a camp of which number I feel closer to, it would be with these guys. But I'm also, I'm concerned about inflation, and not only in the town side, but on the board side, whether even some of the increases that were put in to deal with everything to do with the cost of energy is going to, mean that we're all going to be cutting corners in other places to deal with the inflation. We had another producer price index that was the highest since, that came out today, highest since they have been reporting that number. So given that that's the producer price index, instead of thinking that inflation may be leveling off on the consumer side, the PPI is driving into the consumer price index. So I think we're going to see even, more inflationary numbers. So on the other hand, I say, oh, that's going to make it even tougher for our residents to bear this burden. And then I also think about, next year when, this is the new number that everybody builds on, and that's just, it keeps going up and up. And again, like Mr. Schultz said, there's, every year the salaries and benefits just keep increasing. It's very frustrating when it comes to, the collective bargaining process, because there's no way to make a real impact until the state changes collective bargaining of public union contracts. We're going to be in this position every year of seeing these increases, and the only way to do it is to either cut staff, cut employees, outsource, stop programs. So it's a real challenge for you, and it's a challenge for us up here because, again, we all value the good work that happens in our schools. Our families all love the schools, but we have the other side of the age group that is struggling. I don't know whether the folks that are at 500, whether even coming up a little bit, 525, whether we can find some area between us, between those numbers, where we might get a consensus.
I know we can't delve too much into the Board of Ed side, that we can just give a figure. But what I've heard is a concern about the future and concern for next year. From what we just went through, one of the special meeting minutes, we learned of your 3-year contract that was negotiated that is level set at a 2.5 average. So where the crux of the matter is, and as Denise pointed out, it's, is it number of staff, what have you. Knowing that you have some pilot programs, knowing that you have some grant-funded positions, the people that were hired for the grant-funded positions, I don't know if they were already tenured members of your staff or if they were new members of your staff, but you have a lot of flexibility before folks are tenured. And if that could help to address some of the board members' concerns for next year and inflationary pressures. I just read a column from Paul Krugman, a noted economist, who, even with all the dark storm clouds, is kind of saying that maybe we sort of have rounded the bend on some of these pressures. And so I think it's a black box that nobody really knows. And as I had mentioned, my coming down from my 800 something to the 500 is I was trying to keep the pain parity the same between the town side and the school side. And the town operating budget actually sat at a higher percent increase than what the schools did. We were fortunate on the town side that the debt service is part of the budget as well, and that helped to bring the figure down. And so just for an equity issue, I would like to stick to the 500, and I would hope that my board members could show more flexibility.
John, Paul, do you feel like 500 would be, Rich, I really do agree with everybody's comments that we're worried about next year. I'm just wondering, Jeff, if there's anything that you could say to allay some of our concerns that, this becomes the new jumping off point.
Yeah, and believe me, we're just as concerned about that. And, it's a blessing and a curse to receive the funding that we did, because it's great. We've got the money and we've been able to put some more staff in place, but we knew this was going to happen too. And we knew we'd be standing here having these conversations, and we'll be doing the same thing, next year. So we're trying to be extremely cognizant of not overloading the budget and trying to get positions in. We this year, going into next year, through some attrition, we did cut positions. We're dropping or cutting 4.2 FTE going into next year. So we've tried to, 2 positions that were part of funding at the high school, ARP funding this year, we eliminated 2 other positions at the high school to be able to fit them in, so it's a wash. I know that's not going down in cutting positions, but we're trying not to increase with that. So we're going to be extremely cognizant of that next year. One of the concerns, I have, and I know Kim Davis, our Director of Student Services, has, is the special ed numbers, too, because we mentioned the prevalence rate, is going up. And if we start cutting staff, it starts to become a problem across the board, especially in that world of special education, when we have one of the smallest amounts or numbers of students that are outplaced. And we have talked about those costs of outplaced students. And having the paraprofessionals and the support staff to keep those kids with us is a savings versus millions of dollars potentially of having to outplace because due to those costs. There's another district I was talking to that's similar to us. They have 27 outplaced students. We're between 9 or 10 right now. So we're trying to keep that number low. But I can't stand here and promise you, we're going to not have one position in next year, but we are trying very hard to avoid increasing the budget when we lose these dollars through the ARP and ESSER funds. So I know that that's been a focus of ours going through this cycle, planning for next year.
It didn't occur to me to bring this up before, so I just plain don't know, but to what extent do you have volunteers in the classroom, like parents who come in and do that coaching? Is that something that happens now? Or?
We're getting back to that. Yeah, we're getting back to bringing parents in because COVID is, well, I don't want to say it's over, but we're getting back to normal and inviting them in to help out in the classroom. There's not a lot, but there are a handful. We also try and our hands are tied a little bit too with contracts. Take the secretary's contract. We've tried to bring in parents to help, put books, restock books on the shelves, but the secretarial union does not allow us to do that because they feel it's a secretarial job. So our hands are tied in some confines with union, contractions and union obligations and so forth. So, but there are parents that do try and help out. The PTAs do try and help out at the elementary levels, but middle school, secondary, you're not going to see parents coming in and with security and security risks these days too, we really, we're very cautious about who's walking in, who's in our buildings without background checks and so forth and so on.
Is it true that I think in middle school that you added some sports teams or clubs?
We added two sports teams. Yep. And we're cutting Akiva next year as well. We don't know if those 2 additional sports teams are going to be in the budget. Part of some of our discussions as we looked ahead, trying to get closer to the 500,000, was to eliminate those 2 added sports teams for next year.
What I was going to say is I thought there was more than 2.
There are. We added 2 to the existing. There's swimming. There was existing swimming, cross country, and that's it. There was just 2, and we added soccer and basketball. This year.
What I was going to say is, in all due respect, if you're saying you're trying to cut positions, staff and whatnot, how can you justify adding those sports, which are going to include more staff?
Well, it's not adding staff, John. It's stipends. We pay people stipends. I mean, adding those two sports averages about $20,000 to $25,000. We had parents, we had students, we did surveys to see if there was interest. We had a push from the community to add basketball and soccer this year. So we surveyed, and there was enough detailed information there that said we were going to add those. So for parents and kids.
That we have at East Lyme. Are they all paid coaches or volunteers, or combination of both?
Combination of both. And there's stipend positions for the paid ones. And we have quite a few volunteers that do help out and provide their time part-time or full-time.
What you're saying is the first part of what I asked about the middle school, you're saying the cost involved in those sports that you added are going to be minimal?
It was between $20,000 and $25,000. Yeah. So it's it's not going to move the needle at all on our budget, but it's money. It's money. And those are the things that add up, and that's one of the things that we looked at this afternoon and is on our list for a reduction. Those two added sports, basketball and soccer, because we do have town leagues. We have basketball. Park and Rec provides leagues. We have AAU teams. So that's one of the ones we looked at.
So just looking forward for next year, you gave us that printout. It lined every staff member. This is I'm talking under ARP and the ESSA funds.
Correct.
For next year, on that same report, can you itemize where each staff member ended up, whether he was released or into the
absolutely.
budget or whatever?
Yes, we can do that for you. Yeah,
okay,
definitely. Yep, we'll
Okay.
make a note.
Thank you.
So, you at the 500?
I think that I could come in at 500 if if I really got the feeling that Kevin, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just, I don't get the vote, but I give my input as well. A suggestion for the two teams, going back to when my son was a freshman and going into his freshman year in high school, and I was chairing the board of ed at the time, and they wanted to establish a freshman lacrosse team, and it was agreed by the parents that we would totally, outside the uniforms, which we get hand-me-downs, we paid for everything, transportation, officials, and so forth like that. And I know that worked for several years, so that would be a suggestion. And we also did a fund, too, for any of the students who wanted to participate, might not be able to because of funding. We did that. But, I look at some of the challenges the schools have now, too. There's definitely a mental health problem, but because of COVID and so forth like that, the social media, which none of us really dealt with when we were younger. But those have become school problems, too. If there's a texting problem between two students at night, Jeff, that becomes your problem the next day, correct?
Correct. Absolutely. And it happens.
So instead of the school problem, that's a community problem. Maybe I think there needs to be some better communication between, the police department, who's really good, but the town as well, because here again, what resources could we provide? Could we have an on-call or a consultant therapist or something like that, where people from the schools would have availability to that person, but they would use their health care coverage to take care of the cost of that, rather than it having to be provided by the school. I think there's a lot of things we have to talk about being innovative right now moving forward. And I think you've brought up some really good points, and I think Jeff and I have just touched the surface on that. It's not a school problem, it's not a town problem, it's a community problem. And I think there would be some savings in that too, to look at a way to how many things could be handled by a parent's health care system rather than making those resources available. I think we need to start looking into some other resources and thinking outside that black box that Rich was talking about. So.
Denise, if I can jump off of, you read my mind. When Jeff was talking, I know from sitting on the ARPA subcommittee, as well as looking through the various budgets on both the school side and the town side, we've put together counselors in very disparate departments. We've put together social workers in disparate departments. Annalise, when you were out one night and she was giving the school report, mentioned the pleasure with the Parks and Rec counselor interacting with the schools. I think the position that Kathy Wilson has gotten the advancement for a social worker could lead to a town human services department, call it that, perhaps, where we coordinate the services, and maybe that could take some of the pressure off the schools where they're having staffing as a result of COVID impact upon students, which I've read recently. These problems existed prior to COVID, and it's just that the magnifying glass was put upon the problems during COVID. That if we get coordinated services, we might be able to ease the budgets in various departments, and the schools may not have to continue staff that are currently in the budgets now. So hopefully next year's budget we can have a human services department.
One thing to mention too is through youth services and Dave Putnam, he had established a mentor. Jeff, you remember the mentoring program? That obviously went away with COVID. But you get an adult to team up and mentor with a middle school student, and they would meet once a week just to spend some time talking back and forth. I think these are things, and these are volunteers. Now, granted, volunteers have to be fingerprinted and vetted and so forth like that, and I have no problem with doing that. But I think those are areas we need to expand on. We're coming out of the pandemic. Even if we get a little bubble now, I think we've learned that we can still, interact with people. I think those are areas where if we move forward, you won't see hundreds of thousands, but you'll see, I think, a reduction in what costs are needed to improve. I think, here again, take it as a community effort, vice a school effort to have to do this. I think we can save some money.
And that mentor program is back up and running again, almost getting
Yeah,
there.
we're getting there.
Yes,
So I'm working
yeah.
closely with Sarah. We have 12 mentors who are ready to be paired. We're just working out logistics. We're hoping to kickstart it at the end of this year and then, really get into the groove at the beginning of next year. So COVID has really impacted a lot of our opportunity to work with outside folks. But I know that East Lyme Public Schools values that community partnership tremendously. So, hopefully we can continue to get back to some of that normalcy moving forward.
But I'd be willing to support, to the other members at that number, just to be, as long as we're looking at, as Rich said, the public health issue. I don't think the schools themselves should be responsible for the whole thing. It's more for the parents and the community to. So if we can take care of that, so we don't have these huge increases in these new programs every year, and as Rich said, make it a town-wide problem.
Challenge.
So we don't have these.
Yeah.
We don't have these increases.
Thank you, Rich. Very, very articulate there.
As long as we continue, that even if the budget passes, that we still continue to look at every dollar that gets spent here, and let's just look at the results, not the anecdotal results, which I've heard a lot about, but let's really measure these programs to make sure that they work if we're going to continue them. And if it is to look at sports, I know that's can be a third rail of in the town here, but not every kid gets to get to play on a sports team. So the kid that gets cut from the football team, you talk about a mental health issue. So my son played hockey. We paid the full freight for 4 years. So if it's a small group that's getting the benefit of that, maybe there needs to be some cost sharing involved. But if we can take those items under consideration, I'd be willing to move off my number.
Okay.
I'm going to remain a one voice in the dark. I'm staying where I am.
Okay. Well, I think then at this point, we can go ahead and vote on a reduction of 500,000. Does someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move that we make a reduction of $500,000 from the Board of Education budget.
Do I have a second? Second. Any discussion? Any more than all the discussions we've had? Okay, then all those in favor of reducing the Board of Ed budget by 500,000, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? No. The motion carries 5-1-0. Thank you, and thanks again. This is definitely a painful part. I am counting on next year at this point in time, looking at a number that's, much lower.
We'll definitely do our best, John, with the ARPS or funding those positions.
Okay, thanks.
So I made a note, we'll make that a priority for discussion.
Okay.
I got a phone call from the chiefs, which I told them where I was, so we can forget one of the items I mentioned in the my selectmen's report. He just want to let me know that all the items taken from the Public Works garage have been recovered. So,
Oh, good job.
so good job to our PD.
I hope that was,
Excellent.
Yeah.
He did a nice job on Facebook with a lot of pictures.
Yeah, they did. So some good news.
Okay.
This fax is getting sugar in somewhere.
Next on the agenda, discussion and possible action proposed 2022-2023 capital improvement plan. This is the, oops.
So, does the board just want to make a motion to approve the budget in all the different categories so that we have that for the record?
That would be perfectly okay. Is there a particular form that you want to, do you want to
I can
state
read
it?
Do
and
you want me to
then-
read the numbers?
Yeah.
Okay. Does this on camera? Yeah, okay. So, general government, $20,220,004. Debt service, $5,674,292. Capital, $636,860. And Board of Education, $54,108,478 for a total of $80,639,634.
I'll make a motion to approve the combined town and Board of Ed budget as just stated by Anna Johnson.
You didn't have the guts, did you?
Sandy's a whiz with notes.
Yeah. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Motion carries 600. Thank you, Anna. And so now on to the capital improvement plan, which is the Excel spreadsheet with different colors based on the funding sources. I think to start off with, I'd like to also make a motion to reduce the public work section by $340,000 for the trash truck because we are finding the funds for that through ARP money. So we would be able to reduce the total number in this CIP for this year by 340,000. I've got that right, Anna?
Yes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions, discussion? All those in favor of reducing the CIP by the 340,000 for the trash truck out of the Public Works 317 department? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Motion carries 600. Mr. Sherry, did you want to walk through this, or do you want Anna?
I'll let Anna, because she presented, is this on? Yeah. She presented to the Board of Selectmen, so I'll just let her
Okay.
redo it.
Just 1 second, I think.
Yes, I just wanted to note if you also wanted to note the ARPA funding for the replacement of the town air handler and the upgrades to the HVAC, both under Public Works 317.
Trying to decide whether, do we have that funding yet? Wait a minute.
Yeah, hold on.
I don't know whether that was in the bucket that hasn't
Oh,
been
okay.
received yet.
Oh, okay.
Because as we go through.
Yes, it is there, 150.
It is.
I wanted to see what's,
Yeah.
So some of those top.
it is included in the CIP.
Yeah, but I thought that what she just did was to say that we crossed out the trash truck because the ARPA funding.
Right, well, so the reason that she mentioned the trash truck is the trash truck was also included in the acquisition plan. So
Oh.
because we're using ARPA funds, she reduced, the reduction was made to the ARPA plan.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha. Sorry.
Nope. Good question. Okay then, Anna.
So the plan that you have in front of you, as was approved by the Board of Selectmen at their meeting last week. So the plan does go out for 10 years. The most important part of the plan is the upcoming plan year, of course, the 22-23 year. And for those of you that have been on the board before, you know that all of the items are color-coded. And on the last page, it itemizes what the color codes are. We did include the items that are part of the ARPA plan that are, as they're related to general government, just for more, for transparency purposes, and they're color-coded in red. So if you wanted to go through the departments, beginning with the assessors, we include funding for revaluation, because we're trying to get every year to have equal funding so that when we need to do the statistical valuations and, again, the full valuation, we have enough funding at the time that we need it. And then the next item is engineering. We put funds aside so that when they need, the engineers need updates to their CAD software and survey equipment, they have the resource available in the CNRE fund. We include replacement of computers for all of our town departments. Every year we have a list and we replace the oldest ones. We set aside funds every year in CNRE for the replacement of servers. A few years back, we had one of our servers just crash, so now we're trying to set some funds aside a little every year so that we do have resources if and when that happens again. The items that are in purple are what we're proposing to use our LoCIP allocation for. So we have replacement of townwide garage doors and also any repairs and improvements that we might need to the various public safety buildings that we have throughout town. We also, the next items are the HVAC pump replacement and various townwide roof replacements that we put funds aside every year in CNRE. In emergency management, we've started putting funds aside in CNRE for our defibrillator replacement, as everything that we have in those is date sensitive. So we just felt that because some years we put funds in the general fund and we don't need to replace them, so we're not spending it. So it just makes more sense to set the funds aside in CNRE for that purpose. The East Lyme Waterford boat, we are setting aside another $8,500 in that in CNRE to meet the needs that we have for that boat that we share with Waterford for the patrols on the river. The next item is the state radio communication system for the police department, and that is an ARPA funded item. And the police also have 2 vehicles that will be part of the acquisition plan, and their vehicles are paid for through the fees that they charge for the outside police jobs. The Nyack Fire Department and the Flanders Fire Department have several items of equipment that is funded in the general government that is included in the plan. In Public Works, we have the Town Hall air handler replacement, upgrades to the HVAC system in the Field Services building, and the new trash truck, which are all funded through ARPA. And then we have a couple of additional items that are going to be in the acquisition plan, a new chipper, and also replacement of one of our pickup trucks. Then we are also including a new lift jack system for the highway maintenance garage, but that is proposed to be funded with our LoCIP allocation, and also rebuilding the Plants Dam Road Dam. And again, we're using the LoCIP funds for that project as well. Then we also have our annual road improvements, parking lot, sidewalk, townwide, which is a bonded project at $850,000. And in the Commission on Aging Department, we included the feasibility study at the East Lyme Community Center for that building. So that involves all of the different departments that are located within that building. Parks and Recreation, they have a new dump truck included in the acquisition plan, and then playscape improvements at McCook's Point Park, new water fountains at the parks, restroom replacements in the parks, as well as an open space master plan at the Darrell's Pond property. And those are all being funded through the ARPA funds that we have available. And then we also have $25,000 that we set aside in the CNRE townwide projects. And next we have the Board of Education with their bonded CIP projects, as well as the a multi-purpose tractor for their maintenance department and their annual technology plan, which all become part of the acquisition plan that the town does every year. And that's it.
I have a question, Hannah.
Pardon?
I have a question.
Sure.
I'll start this saying I'm an animal person, but pet bowl stations for $75,000.
Oh no, that's not the pet bowl stations.
I saw that too, John.
Basically, it's basically, we have shut off all the water fountains and that for the last couple of years. Even with the relaxation of COVID, you want to have these ones that you see, you can go up, fill up a water bottle and so forth like that. That's to replace it with all those type of, if I'm looking, this is under Parks and Rec, right, John?
Yeah, it's
All
on the bottom,
water fountains.
Page
not-
3.
not
Yeah.
the water fountain, but
But
Yeah,
the
and,
pet bowl-
I mean, it's all part of the same
it's like
setup
wash
type
your
of thing. It's
feet.
not as if
It's
there'll be a
all
dedicated
it's
pet station for that. It'll be basically an area where it's basically for people and pets.
okay,
The description is written up too.
all right.
The
Yeah,
I saw that, I had to read it twice.
yeah.
So it's like
Or
the
maybe
showers
gold
at the
plated
beach,
or what.
high and low.
Yeah.
Okay.
Make it more sanitary.
And then just out of curiosity, because I've been seeing a lot on social media with petitions to get pickleball courts in town.
Mhm.
Didn't know whether that had come up in discussion at all.
No. I mean, here again, that's only come up recently.
Yeah.
And the thing is, before we start putting funding aside, we'd have to get some idea of where could we actually
Yeah.
put them, because you want them outside or someplace like that. I know this, I know we have an accomplished expert in pickleball, right? I've actually seen you play, Rich, you are quite good.
Well,
at that.
our new town reporter,
Oh.
on an interim basis, she
Okay.
learned pickleball last night.
Okay.
Yeah, I
No,
was just
but
curious.
that's something I think we would look at moving forward, because here again, I think one of the things we've seen is being active and outdoors is really important, so.
I had one that caught my eye. The decking for the boardwalk is up for renewal this soon.
What page
Which
is that?
one? Are you-
Where did I see that?
Was that the one by the Barina?
Where did I see
We
it?
don't have any decking on the boardwalk.
Well, that's what I was,
That's what it said.
The one on the river by the Marina.
Yeah, the only one I can think of is if you're coming up on Main Street by Cheney Park, once you start heading west from Cheney Park, there's a
Oh,
little
I
bit
see,
of
it's on the second page, Peter.
second page.
Yeah, that
It
one
was
is
100,000.
wood, and it's in pretty
It's
bad
low
shape.
SIP
It was
funding,
low
Close.
funding, but okay.
but it's not coming up this next year.
Yeah. And that's not next year, I don't think either.
It's just
That's further
before you
down.
go into Cheney
For
Park.
23-24,
Yeah,
Nanick River Boardwalk
yeah,
replaced decking.
pardon?
Yeah, Nanick River Boardwalk
Yeah.
replaced decking. That's the one by Boat Sink,
Yeah, a little further down from Boat
Yeah.
Sink and down there.
and that's due to be replaced this like next year.
No,
It's 23,
probably
24.
some work on it. Next year's, that's there for next year, it might slide a little further too. That's just as a placeholder right now.
Okay,
I mean, I've walked over that, it's not, doesn't seem to be in that much of a
that's what
disrepair.
that's.
Yeah.
It looked like it was okay.
Yeah,
It's weathered.
yeah. But here again, I think that's just, it's sort of like they have the placeholder for building a new fire department, that's there, but there's really no intent to do that, but that's just to make sure it's not thought of. We will be doing, and you'll be getting it probably at your next regular meeting, we're starting to see some of the surface cracks in the boardwalk itself, the whole length. So we have some FEMA money left over from Sandy, and you'll see a proposal coming through. We've got a quote, Bill Scherer, they've done the measuring that. And for us to do it, we would be doing sort of an emergent repair. This would be something that would be more of a permanent. And it's not bad now, but we have the resources, let's do it now.
Keep it nice. you know.
What kind of planking is that?
Down on the,
What kind of, like, is it Trex,
I do not know, John.
the composite?
It's wood, but what kind of wood, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure of the composition of it. Yeah, we did some minor repairs on it a couple of years ago.
So, do we need to have a motion to accept the CIP? Or,
Yeah, as amended,
As
because you
amended,
took the money out.
I'll make a motion to accept the Town of East Lyme Long Range Capital Plan as amended.
Second.
any discussion? Comments, questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carried 600. Okay, continuing with new business. Discussion and possible action, American Rescue Plan appropriations. So, I'd like to make note that we also have in our packet the legal opinion discussing all the American Rescue Plan appropriations. So we have that on file here. I know we're all taking special care to make sure we don't run afoul like some other communities have done, so.
No, I think this goes back to last year when Andrew Keller was still on Board of Finance. She said, you know, even when it's obvious, it's always good to have town attorney vet it, which they have done in every case this time. And two, they're always going with the final version that changes on a weekly basis. It's always the most recent final. So they keep very up to date with that type of information, so they've done a really good job with that. Thank you, Jeff. And, I mean, the work, and Paul and Rich, the work they did vetting people too. This wasn't just people showing up, and they made sure that they had to be very articulate and defend what they were requesting too, and I think the committee did a really good job.
Okay, so we have motion number 1.
Okay. Resolve to approve the ARP Ad Hoc Subcommittee recommendations for appropriations of East Lyme's American Rescue Plan, ARP, funds on hand in the amount of $1,060,417.84 in the following amounts and for the following purposes. $461,945 for small business and nonprofit requests as per Exhibit 9A of the subcommittee's report dated March 16, 2022. Provided each recipient execute an agreement with the town that the funds shall be used only for its stated purpose, and that those entities which have received prior ARP funds verify in writing the use of said funds before receiving any additional funds. $340,000 for the garbage truck, Public Works. $150,000 for the air handler, Town Hall, Public Works. $12,800 software for emergency planning, emergency management. $25,000 Darrow Pond Recreation Area Master Plan, Parks and Rec. $2,659.90 for a town hall drop box, building maintenance. And just for clarification, that's similar to what was for the voting.
Ballot box,
the
yes.
ballot boxes. Yeah. And this would be for putting taxes and other secure documents into. $5,225 for fire safety equipment for the fire marshal. $5,865 for glass doors and an OWL camera for Zoom meeting space at the library. $25,000 contingency ARP administrative costs and attorney's fees. $31,922.94 contingency emergency management pandemic needs. Note, this action requires a town meeting.
Second?
Second.
And any discussion, comments, questions?
I'm thrilled with the number of nonprofits that are on here.
Mhm.
You know, Care and Share, Safe Futures, TDCCA. I think that's great. I think that's fabulous that we've done that. I appreciate the committee's work.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would also just say, in addition to Rich and Paul, who worked on it, Ann Santoro did a wonderful job as well, along with all the other committee members.
Mr. Edwards, who's staying here, has been
I-
was a very valued community member of that committee as well.
I'm sorry I hadn't met you before, didn't know who you were. So, yes, thank you very much. It was a tremendous effort by everybody, and I think a good outcome there. So, all those in favor of approving these recommendations?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Any abstentions? No. Motion carries 600. And the town meeting will be set at,
We are going to we're going to have a special Board of Selectmen meeting tomorrow, a Zoom meeting, just to set a call to the town meeting so we can get it published, and it'll be next Thursday, the 20th at 7 p.m. right here.
okay.
And you know, and the reason for that is the quicker we act on the garbage truck, we might not need the full 340, so we want to take advantage of any savings we can have.
Okay.
Okay, resolved to approve the ARP Ad Hoc Subcommittee recommendations for appropriations of East Lyme's American Rescue Plan, ARP funds, subject to receipt of said funds, in the total amount of $2,726,713.40 in the following amounts and for the following purposes. Public Works upgrades to HVAC at the Field Services Building, $270,000. Police Department switch to State Radio Communications System, $466,161.34. Parks and Rec, continue part-time prevention mentoring coordinator position to begin October 2021, $55,000. Parks and Rec, continue part-time counselor positions at Youth Services beginning 2022, $20,000. Parks and Rec, playscape improvements to McCook Point Park and Peretz Park, $150,000. Parks and Rec, replace all water fountains in parks, $75,000. Parks and Rec, restroom enhancement in parks, $200,000. Senior Center and Community for full-time social worker, $59,475. Library Senior Center, Parks and Rec for feasibility study, $38,000. Water and Sewer, upgrade Niantic Sewer Pump Station, $600,000. Water and Sewer, recoat Boston Post Road Water Tank, $750,000. And contingency for emergency management pandemic needs, $43,077.06. Note this action requires a town meeting.
Have a second?
Second.
Discussion. So just to kind of be consistent with the way we've been thinking about positions added with ARP funds, I know that we've got some, the position at Youth Services and part-time counselor, and I spoke to Ann about that just because I was concerned that all of a sudden here's some more staff people that are coming on board through ARP money, and I believe the committee discussed this and made clear that this was going to be just for this amount, and that it's not something that would then be baked into future employment. Do I have that?
I think, yeah, I think this is where we talk about, this is where the resources are still going to probably be needed, there's no question, but this is where, okay, if the part-time counselor, that's where, most medical coverage plans do cover, therapy and that, so that's where you start looking at that. So I think that's how we move forward with these type of things, start looking for ways to provide the service without burdening, the entire tax, people, all the taxpayers.
And Rich and Paul, do you agree with my assessment that this is clear, that this is just this money and
Right.
not?
Yeah, that was what we had represented, that it wasn't going to continue.
Okay.
Unless, it'd have to go through a regular process. It wasn't going to be a continuing expenditure.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions or comments on these? Okay, in that case, we'll call for a vote. Does everyone approve this resolution? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? No. Motion carries 600. And now we move to page 3 of the agenda, down to the special appropriation and transfer week 53 payroll, $24,741 contingency. Anna, do you want to?
Oh, I was just going to mention, every few years, every fourth year, you get into a situation where you have that 53rd week of payroll. So this would just be to fund those accounts, and and it also has, I believe, a list of those affected by it as well for that 53rd week. So this is one of the things that will not happen as we move forward with the new Novatime immune system. These things will be caught and, you know, they'll stop. So this is the last time this will have to be done.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Yeah. You're fine, right? That was yours?
You can take it. Move to approve a special appropriation and transfer from account 01-01-120-200-500 contingency in the amount of $24,740.79 per the attached wage analysis schedule to fund the additional pay week in various accounts.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion, comments, questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? No. Motion carries 6-0-0. And then item E, special appropriation and transfer of $17,459 building department wages contingency.
This is just moving, you know, the resources were stretched and actually we're saving a little bit of money now because we're not paying the, we haven't hired a building official yet, but we are tracking to have a little bit of an overrun there because of the work required and the extra time required by our two part-timers, both Mr. Ed, who's been filling in as the interim, as well as the Red, the other part-timer. So this is just bring it up to where we'll be fine to make it through the rest of the year. And as it shows there, this is, we've generated more than enough revenue to cover this in that account.
Okay.
The right one.
You got this one?
Move to approve a special appropriation and transfer in the amount of $17,459 from account 0101-120-200-500 parentheses contingency as follows. $11,579 to account 01-01-104-100-212 in parentheses building official, and $5,880 to account 01-01-104-100-311 administration clerical.
And just to clarify, I forgot to add that part. It has required extra hours from admin and clerical, so one of the admin assistants down there, who is not 37 and a half, has gotten a couple more hours. Doesn't affect benefits, she gets those anyways.
I'll second.
The motion's been made and seconded. Does anyone have any comments or questions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries 6-0-0. Okay. We don't have any old business. Now open this up to public discussion. If there's anyone here who wants to address anything that comes under the purview of the Board of Finance that may not necessarily be on the agenda tonight, but Mr. Schultz?
Mike Schultz, Lover's Lane, East Lyme. Congratulations, you come up with a pretty fast number tonight, which just fine with me. That's where we're headed. You have to realize that we're rapidly approaching the period of time where young folks are not going to be able to buy a home in this town with the tax increases. So just bear that in mind. I would go one step further and suggest that with you folks, the Board of Finance, only having control of about 3% of the budget of the Board of Ed, I think it's time to bifurcate the budget. Let the Board of Education generate its budget, send out its own bills to the public and be done with it. And you folks can deal with the town side of the budget. The Board of Education themselves can deal with the superintendent's budget. They're elected officials, competent. Let them take care of it. You take care of the town side. Because I think what we're doing is a waste of time. I'm looking at one of the pages on the handout from the superintendent, student services, priority and needs. And it says on there we got 23 new students with disabilities, new students with disabilities. And we've got parents coming in here, and you'll hear it on when you have your Board of Finance public hearing, how people come and say, we moved here to this town because of the school system. Over and over and over again. Probably heard it 200 times at that fiasco meeting in 2019. Well, they moved here because we got a good school system, but maybe that's one of the reasons. You got 23 new students. People are moving here because they know the town of East Lyme has got a great school system, and they're going to take care of them. And I've heard on numerous occasions people that have lived in town that have made the statement that because East Lyme provides all these extracurricular activities for kids, it's a great place to move and raise your kids. I'm sure it's true. But you do that at a cost. And as I said, $25,000 per student is one heck of a cost when you're probably only contributing $5,000 or $6,000 of your tax money to the school system, and multiply that times 3 or 4 kids that you may have in your family. So they're not doing us a favor by moving here. Not at all. My opinion, no disrespect intended to anyone. Additionally, we're bringing on psychiatrists, psychologists, nurses. I mean, schools need nurses. But the parents have got to start taking control of their kids. We shouldn't be having to have the school system feed the kids, do all the psychology for them, and they're taking care of the kids, having extra programs for the kids. It's ridiculous to have the school systems be responsible for that. And then they have the taxpayer to pick up 80% of the extra costs. Parents, and that's what we need to do, get parents involved more than what they are. They have the upper hand with their kids, and they need to throttle them back and take care of them. The other part I want to say is you mentioned that when you have the Board of Finance public hearing, according to the town charter, says if you're not a taxpayer, you don't get up to speak. Are you holding that? That's what the book says. Okay. My last, and this one I feel strongly about. I believe the word is recluse. I don't think members of the Board of Finance should be able to vote on a budget with the Board of Education when their associated family member is on the Board of Education. That, to me, in my opinion, is a conflict of interest. It happened tonight, and I would hope that in the future we would stop it. You all are doing a great job, but Judge Thomas was doing a good job too, and look what happened there. So, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Schultz.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. right. On to board comments. Anyone have anything left that they wanted to say? Well, I would just say that I appreciate the way everybody worked together. It is a difficult process. We've all put in a lot of hours. I know I would have liked a bigger cut, but I also know how little control, because of union contracts, we have over a lot of what goes on there. So I sometimes we have to make some concessions, give a little, and I hope that next year, we have the Board of Ed, coming back to us with a number much smaller than they did this year, and that we can take this year to look at some of those suggestions around human services to see, get these services, like Mr. Schultz said, not just the responsibility of the Board of Ed, but more of our community and our families and their family physicians. So, but I appreciate all the work everybody did. And now it's on to the town meeting.
Public hearing first.
Public hearing, then town meeting. Anyone have anything else? If not, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, did we have a second?
I'll second.